On the day I was supposed to marry the man I loved, he chose his mistress instead. So I walked away, straight into the arms of his older brother. 1 month later, I owned his company, wore his family's name, and watched him beg on his knees at my wedding. This isn't a love story. It's revenge, served cold and wearing a diamond ring. The morning of my engagement dawned with a golden haze, the kind that made the city of Varenthus look like it had been dipped in honey. The high towers of the financial district gleamed under the sun, and the distant hum of airships whispered of prosperity. My reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror of the penthouse suite was a vision of silk and diamonds. Every inch the future Mrs. Damien Voss. Or so I had believed. "You look stunning, Ilara," my best friend Livia murmured as she adjusted the delicate lace on my gown. Her fingers trembled slightly, betraying the nerves she tried to hide. I smiled, though my stomach twisted. "Damien better not faint when he sees me." Livia laughed, but it was too quick, too forced. She had been acting strange all morning, exchanging glances with the other bridesmaids, her lips pressed tight whenever I caught her staring. "Where is he, anyway?" I asked, glancing at the antique clock on the wall. "He should have been here by now." A beat of silence. Then Livia cleared her throat. "He's running late. Something came up at the office." I frowned. "The office? Today?" Before I could press further, my phone buzzed. A message from Damien. "Blair, we need to talk. Meet me at the Sky Terrace." My pulse stuttered. "We need to talk" was never a good sign. The Sky Terrace was an exclusive lounge atop the Voss Tower, a place where the elite sipped champagne while overlooking the city. When I stepped out of the elevator, the first thing I saw was Damien, tall, impeccably dressed, his dark hair swept back in that way that made women sigh. And beside him, clinging to his arm like ivy on a wall, was Celine. Her platinum hair cascaded over her shoulders, her red lips curved in a smirk. She wore a dress too tight, too revealing, as if she had dressed for a different kind of celebration. Damien's gaze met mine, and for the first time in 5 years, I saw guilt in his eyes. "Ilara," he began, his voice steady. "Too steady. I can't go through with this." The world tilted. Celine's fingers tightened around his bicep. "We didn't mean for this to happen," she said, not sounding sorry at all. I stared at them, my heartbeat a deafening drum in my ears. "You're choosing her?" My voice didn't sound like mine. "On our engagement day?" Damien exhaled sharply. "It's not about choosing. It's about what's real." A laugh bubbled up in my throat, sharp and brittle. "Real? You've been lying to me for months, and now you're calling this real?" He had no answer. Celine tilted her head. "It's better this way, Ilara. You deserve someone who can give you everything. And Damien, well, his heart isn't yours anymore." The words were a knife. I turned on my heel before the tears could fall. The penthouse was empty when I returned. The maids had cleared away the flowers, the champagne, the remnants of a celebration that would never happen. I stood in the center of the room, my engagement gown suddenly heavy, the diamonds around my neck like a chain. Then the door opened. I expected Livia. Maybe my mother. Instead it was him. Kieran Voss. Damien's older brother. He leaned against the doorframe, his tailored suit a shade darker than Damien's, his presence quieter but infinitely more dangerous. His sharp green eyes took in the scene, the ruined dress, the absence of a groom, the shattered expression on my face. "So," he said, his voice a low rumble. "He did it." I swallowed. "You knew." Kieran stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "I had my suspicions." A bitter laugh escaped me. "And you didn't warn me?" He studied me for a long moment. Then with a slow, deliberate smile, he said, "Would you have believed me?" I didn't answer. Kieran moved closer, his gaze never leaving mine. "You have 2 choices now, Ilara. You can walk away, let them win. Or," his voice dropped, "you can burn them to the ground." I looked up at him, the man who had always been in Damien's shadow, the brother who never flaunted his power but wielded it with precision. "How?" Kieran's smile deepened. "Marry me." Kieran's words hung in the air between us, sharp and deliberate. "Marry me." I stared at him, my fingers tightening around the crushed silk of my dress. "You're serious?" He didn't blink. "Deadly." A hysterical laugh threatened to bubble up. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be real. Just hours ago I was supposed to marry Damien. Now his brother was standing in front of me offering, what? A twisted consolation prize? This isn't some romantic rescue, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. What's in it for you? Kieran tilted his head, the dim light catching the sharp angles of his face. Damien's weakness is my advantage. He just handed me the perfect weapon. Me? You, he agreed. I exhaled slowly. The numbness was wearing off, replaced by something hotter, something jagged. Revenge. Tasted bitter and sweet at the same time. And what happens after? I asked. After we humiliate him? Kieran's lips curved, but there was no warmth in it. Then we rule. The Voss family's private dining hall was a monument to old money. Crystal chandeliers, dark mahogany, portraits of stern-faced ancestors judging every misstep. Normally, I would have been seated at Damien's side, smiling politely at his father's dry remarks. Tonight I walked in on Kieran's arm. The room fell silent. Damien, halfway through a sip of wine, choked. Celine, perched beside him like a well-dressed vulture, went rigid. Elara. Damien's voice was strained. What are you? Good evening, everyone, Kieran interrupted smoothly. Apologies for the late arrival. Elara and I had some matters to discuss. Damien's father, Alistair Voss, set down his fork with deliberate calm. What is this? Kieran's hand settled at the small of my back, a silent command. Hold your ground. We have an announcement, he said, his voice carrying effortlessly. Elara and I are engaged. The silence shattered. Damien shot to his feet, his chair screeching against the marble. You're what? Celine's nails dug into his arm, her face pale. Alistair's gaze flicked between us, calculating. This is sudden. Kieran shrugged. Not really. We've been close for years. Why? Kieran and I had barely exchanged more than polite greetings at family events. But the way he said it, so casually, so convincingly, made even me question my own memory. Damien's laugh was hollow. You expect anyone to believe this? I met his eyes for the first time since the terrace. Does it matter? His jaw tightened. Celine recovered first, her voice dripping with false sweetness. How unexpected. Congratulations. Kieran smiled, all teeth. Thank you. We're thinking a winter wedding. Short engagement, of course. No point in waiting when you know it's right. The subtext was clear. Unlike you. Damien looked like he'd been slapped. Later, in the quiet of Kieran's penthouse, twice as large as Damien's, twice as cold, I finally let myself breathe. That went well, Kieran remarked, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. I accepted the glass but didn't drink. He looked like he was about to explode. Good. Kieran swirled his drink, watching the amber liquid catch the light. Anger makes him reckless. Recklessness makes him weak. I studied him. The way he moved, the way he spoke, every word measured, every action precise. Kieran wasn't just playing a game. He was 10 steps ahead of everyone else. You've wanted this, I realized. You've been waiting for him to slip up. Kieran took a slow sip. Everyone has a breaking point. Today he handed me his. A shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't just about me. This was about power. About the Voss Empire. And Kieran intended to take it all. I set down my glass. What's next? He smirked. Next we make them suffer. The morning after our announcement, Varenthus's society pages exploded. Scandal of the season. Elara Rothwell engaged to Voss heir. Just not the one everyone expected. I crumpled the newspaper in my hands, tossing it onto the breakfast table. Kieran barely glanced up from his tablet, where stock reports flickered across the screen. Too dramatic? I asked. He smirked. Not dramatic enough. The penthouse was quiet, all sleek black marble and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. No flowers, no wedding planners, no frantic bridesmaids. Just the hum of the espresso machine and the distant sound of traffic 30 floors below. It should have felt like a victory. Just my chest ached. Kieran's gaze sharpened. Regrets already? No. I reached for my coffee, forcing steadiness into my fingers. Just adjusting. He watched me for a beat too long before returning to his reports. Damien called. 7 times. I snorted. Let him rot. A knock at the door interrupted us. Livia stood in the hallway, her designer sunglasses hiding her eyes, her arms crossed tight over her chest. We need to talk. The rooftop garden of Voss Tower was a carefully curated oasis. Pristine hedges, imported citrus trees, a trickling fountain that cost more than most people's homes. Livia paced beside it, her heels clicking against the stone. "You married his brother?" she hissed. "Engaged," I corrected. "Not married yet." She whipped off her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. "Do you even hear yourself? This isn't you, Alara. This is..." "What?" I challenged. "Petty? Reckless? Tell me, Liv, did you know about Celine?" Her breath hitched. That was answer enough. I turned away, gripping the railing. The city sprawled beneath us, glittering and indifferent. "I tried to tell you," she whispered. "But you were so happy." A bitter laugh escaped me. "And now I'm not. So let me have this." She grabbed my arm. "Kieran Voss isn't some knight in shining armor. He's worse than Damien." I shook her off. "Good." Damien cornered me in the lobby that afternoon. He looked terrible, shadows under his eyes, his usually perfect hair disheveled. "Alara," he breathed, stepping too close. "We need to talk." The scent of his cologne, spice and bergamot, the same one I'd bought him last Christmas, made my stomach twist. "About what?" I stepped back. "The weather? The stock market? Or maybe how you humiliated me in front of everyone we know?" His jaw tightened. "You're marrying Kieran to punish me. Maybe I'm marrying him because he's better than you." The words landed like a slap. Damien flinched. "You don't mean that." I leaned in, close enough to see the panic in his eyes. "Watch me." Celine wasn't as subtle. She intercepted me outside the Voss Group's executive offices, her smile razor-sharp. "Alara. How lovely to see you." I didn't slow my stride. "Celine. Still dressing like you're auditioning for a bad rom-com?" Her laugh was like shattered glass. "Still pretending you're not heartbroken?" I stopped. Turned. "You'll never be more than his mistress, you know. Even if he marries you, everyone will remember how you started." Her smile faltered. I stepped closer. "And when Kieran takes over the company, you think Damien will keep you around when he's broke?" Her perfectly manicured nails curled into fists. I walked away before she could reply. Kieran was waiting in his office, his sleeves rolled up to reveal the dark ink of his tattoos, a rare glimpse of imperfection in his otherwise polished facade. "Well?" he asked. I collapsed into the chair across from him. "Damien's unraveling. Celine's desperate. And Livia thinks I've lost my mind." He smirked. "Perfect." I studied him, the way the afternoon light caught the gold in his eyes, the quiet intensity of his focus. "Why are you really doing this?" Kieran set down his pen. "Because I've spent my life watching Damien fail upward. It's time he faced consequences." There was more to it, there had to be, but I didn't press. Instead, I reached across the desk, my fingers brushing his. "Then let's ruin him." His hand turned, capturing mine. "Gladly." The Voss annual charity gala was the most exclusive event in Varenthis, a glittering spectacle where the city's elite gathered to flaunt their wealth under the guise of philanthropy. This year it was also my battlefield. I stood before the mirror in my dressing room, adjusting the emerald green gown Kieran had chosen for me. The silk clung to every curve, the plunging neckline daring, the slit up the thigh impossible to ignore. It was a dress designed to make a statement. Let them look, I thought. Let him look. Kieran appeared in the doorway, his black tuxedo tailored to perfection, his cufflinks, engraved with the Voss family crest, catching the light. His gaze swept over me, lingering for a fraction too long. "Ready?" he asked. I met his eyes in the mirror. "Will Damien be there? Would it be any fun if he wasn't?" I smirked. "Then let's go." The grand ballroom of the Voss estate was a vision of opulence. Crystal chandeliers dripping from the ceiling, champagne towers shimmering under golden light, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and ambition. Every head turned as we entered. Whispers slithered through the crowd like snakes. "That's her, the one Damien left at the altar. And now she's with his brother? Savage. Do you think it's real?" Kieran's hand settled possessively at the small of my back as we descended the staircase. "Smile," he murmured. "They're all watching." I did. Wide and wicked. Across the room, Damien stood frozen, a champagne flute dangling from his fingers. "Celine," draped over his arm in a silver gown that looked like it had been sewn from fish scales, glared daggers at me. "Ah," Kieran said, steering me toward them. "There's the happy couple." "Ilara." Damien's voice was strained. "You look different." I sipped my champagne. "I feel different." Celine's grip on his arm tightened. "Kieran, I didn't realize you were into charity cases." Kieran didn't even glance at her. "Damien, the board was asking about the Singapore deal today. Pity you weren't there to answer their questions." A muscle in Damien's jaw twitched. "I was in meetings all day." "With her?" I nodded toward Celine. Damien flushed. "That's none of your..." "Darling." A booming voice interrupted us. Alistair Voss loomed over the group, his silver hair slicked back, his smile as genuine as a $3 bill. "I see you've met my future daughter-in-law." Celine preened, until she realized he was looking at me. Alistair clapped Kieran on the shoulder. "The board was impressed with your presentation today. Sharp thinking, cutting the Singapore deal loose before it tanked." Damien went very still. "What?" Kieran shrugged. "You left me no choice. Your numbers were off by 20 million. The air between the brothers crackled. Celine, sensing the shift, tried to intervene. "Mr. Voss, Damien has been working tirelessly." Alistair cut her off with a look. "Who are you again?" I choked on my champagne. Later, when the orchestra swelled and couples drifted toward the dance floor, Kieran held out his hand. "Shall we?" I hesitated. He arched a brow. "Scared. Of you?" "Never." I took his hand. His palm was warm against mine, his grip firm as he pulled me close. We moved together effortlessly, his lead confident, my steps matching his perfectly. "You're good at this," I admitted. His lips quirked. "I have hidden talents." The music swelled and he spun me out, then back in, my back flush against his chest. Around us the crowd blurred. "Are you enjoying yourself?" he murmured in my ear. I glanced across the room where Damien was arguing with Celine, his face red, her gestures sharp. "Immensely." Kieran chuckled, the sound vibrating through me. "Good. This is just the beginning." Livia intercepted me in the ladies' lounge, her arms crossed. "You're playing with fire." I touched up my lipstick in the mirror. "And you're still taking his side." "I'm on your side." She grabbed my wrist. "Do you really think Kieran cares about you? This is just some power play for him." I wrenched free. "And that's different from Damien, how?" Her face fell. I softened. "Liv, I know you're worried. But I need you to trust me." She studied me for a long moment. Then reluctantly, "Just be careful." The night ended with fireworks, literal ones, exploding over the estate gardens in a shower of gold and crimson. Kieran and I stood apart from the crowd, watching the sky burn. "Happy?" he asked. I thought of Damien's stricken face, Celine's humiliation, the whispers swirling around us like leaves in a storm. "Getting there." He turned to me, his expression unreadable in the flickering light. "The board meets Monday. They'll vote on stripping Damien's voting shares." My breath caught. "And you? If all goes according to plan?" His smile was slow, dangerous. "I'll own his empire before you walk down the aisle." The last firework burst overhead, painting his face in shades of victory. I laced my fingers through his. "Then let's make sure nothing goes wrong." The morning of the board meeting dawned gray and heavy, the sky threatening rain. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Kieran's penthouse, watching the city below, my reflection a ghostly outline against the glass. "Are you ready?" Kieran's voice cut through the silence. I turned to find him already dressed in a charcoal suit, his tie perfectly knotted, his expression unreadable. "Shouldn't I be asking you that?" I said, smoothing my hands over my own tailored blazer. Black, sharp, designed to look like armor. Kieran smirked. "I was born ready for this." A knock at the door interrupted us. His assistant, a whip-smart woman named Naomi, entered with a stack of files. "It's done," she said, handing them to Kieran. "All the votes are secured." Kieran didn't even glance at the papers. "And Damien?" Naomi's lips curled. "He has no idea." I exhaled slowly. This was it. The beginning of the end for Damien. The Voss Group headquarters was a steel and glass monolith in the heart of the financial district. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent, tense. Kieran stood beside me, his posture relaxed, but I could see the tension in his jaw. "Last chance to back out," he murmured as the doors slid open. I shot him a look. "Don't insult me." The boardroom was already full when we entered. 12 of the most powerful executives in the city, all seated around a gleaming mahogany table. Damien sat at the head, his expression smug, his fingers steepled in front of him. Celine lounged in a chair against the wall, her presence an unspoken taunt. "Ah, Kieran," Damien drawled. "So kind of you to join us." Kieran didn't react. He simply took his seat, leaving me to stand at his side. Alistair Voss cleared his throat. "Let's begin." For the first hour, the meeting was routine. Financial reports, projections, the dull hum of corporate bureaucracy. Damien led the discussion with the easy arrogance of a man who thought his position was unshakable. Then Kieran struck. "The Singapore deal," he said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. Damien stiffened. "What about it?" Kieran slid a file across the table. "Your numbers were off. By 20 million. A murmur rippled through the board. Damien's face darkened. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Kieran leaned back in his chair. "Because according to our auditors, you deliberately misrepresented the projections to push the deal through." Silence. Celine sat up straighter, her eyes darting between them. Damien's laugh was brittle. "This is ridiculous. You're just pissed because I closed it without you." Kieran didn't blink. "I already pulled the plug on it. The board knows." Damien's gaze snapped to his father. "You knew about this?" Alistair's expression was unreadable. "I authorized it." The air in the room turned to ice. Then Kieran delivered the killing blow. He tapped a button on the table's console, and the screen behind him lit up. Security footage of Damien and Celine in his office, her perched on his desk, his hands roaming as she whispered in his ear. "The timestamp? The afternoon of our engagement." The audio crackled to life. "Once the deal goes through, we'll be set," Damien murmured. "And Alara? She'll be someone else's problem." The room erupted. I stood perfectly still, my face a mask of calm, even as my nails dug into my palms. Damien shot to his feet. "This is a setup." Kieran arched a brow. "Is it?" Celine's face had gone sheet white. Alistair stood, his voice thunderous. "Enough." The room fell silent. The vote was unanimous. By the time the meeting adjourned, Damien had been stripped of his voting shares, his authority reduced to a hollow title. Kieran was named interim CEO, and I was the woman who had stood by his side as it happened. Damien cornered me in the hallway outside, his breath ragged, his eyes wild. "Alara, please." I didn't let him finish. "How does it feel?" I asked softly. "To lose everything?" His face crumpled. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I stepped closer, close enough to see the desperation in his eyes. "And this is just the beginning." Kieran found me on the rooftop terrace. The city sprawled beneath us, the first drops of rain beginning to fall. He didn't speak at first. Just stood beside me, his presence a quiet, steady thing. Finally, I broke the silence. "What now?" Kieran turned to me, his expression unreadable. "Now," he said, "we celebrate." And for the first time since this began, I believed him. The morning after the boardroom coup, financial news channels ran 3 headlines on loop. Voss Group heir ousted in stunning boardroom takeover. Kieran Voss named interim CEO amidst scandal. Damien Voss's future in question after shocking revelations. I watched the coverage from Kieran's penthouse, curled in an armchair with coffee steaming between my hands. The rain from last night had settled into a steady drizzle, turning the city into a watercolor blur outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Kieran emerged from his study, tie already loosened despite the early hour, his sleeves rolled up to reveal the dark ink of his forearms. He barely glanced at the television as he poured himself a coffee. "Regretting it yet?" he asked, his voice rough with exhaustion. I muted the news. "Not even a little." His lips quirked as he took the seat opposite me. "Good. Because it's about to get worse for him." Before I could ask what he meant, my phone buzzed. A message from Livia. "We need to talk. Alone." I hesitated just a second too long. Kieran noticed. "Problem?" I set the phone face down. "Nothing I can't handle." Livia was waiting at our old brunch spot, a tiny cafe tucked between 2 high-rises, the kind of place Damien would have scoffed at for being quaint. She'd already ordered for us mimosas and avocado toast like nothing had changed. Except everything had. She didn't bother with pleasantries. You're making a mistake. I stirred my mimosa, watching the bubbles rise. Which part? Ruining Damien or marrying his brother? Both. She leaned forward, her manicured nails tapping the table. Kieran isn't who you think he is. I arched a brow. And you're suddenly an expert? Her gaze flickered away just for a second, but it was enough. My stomach dropped. You're still talking to Damien, I realized. She didn't deny it. He's desperate, Alara. You don't know what he's capable of when he's cornered. I stood, tossing cash onto the table. Funny. That's exactly what I'm counting on. Kieran's penthouse was empty when I returned. A note on the counter in his sharp, precise handwriting. Business to handle. Don't wait up. I crumpled it in my fist. The penthouse felt too large suddenly, too quiet. I wandered to the balcony, the chill of the railing biting through my sleeves. Below, the city pulsed with life. Unaware, uncaring. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. Alara. Damien's voice was raw, stripped of its usual polish. Please. I should have hung up. I didn't. What do you want? A shaky breath. To see you. Just talk. No games. I laughed. You don't know how to do anything but play games. Silence. Then so quiet I almost missed it. I'm begging you. The words sent a thrill down my spine. I hung up. Celine wasn't as subtle. She ambushed me outside my favorite boutique, her usual platinum perfection replaced by dark circles and chipped nails. You think you've won, she spat, blocking my path. But you have no idea what's coming. I adjusted my shopping bags. Is that supposed to scare me? Her smile was razor thin. Kieran's secrets run deeper than you know. Ask him about the fire. Then she was gone, swallowed by the crowd. I stood frozen, the words ringing in my ears. The fire. Kieran returned late that night, his jacket smelling of whiskey and rain. He paused when he saw me waiting on the couch, my legs tucked under me, his files spread across the coffee table. Find anything interesting? He asked, shrugging out of his jacket. I held up a photo, a younger Kieran standing in front of a charred building, his face streaked with soot. What happened here? His expression shuddered. That's not your concern. Isn't it? I stood, the photo still in hand. Celine seemed to think it was. A muscle in his jaw ticked. Celine doesn't know shit. Then tell me. For a long moment he just looked at me. Then quietly, it was an accident. A long time ago. I waited. He exhaled sharply. Damien was supposed to be in that building. The air left my lungs. Kieran stepped closer, his voice dropping. Now do you understand why I can't let him win? I did. And it changed everything. The truth about the fire sat between us like a live wire. I stared at Kieran across the dimly lit penthouse, the photograph still clutched in my hand. His face in the image, younger, angrier, streaked with ash, was a version of him I didn't recognize. You tried to kill him, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Kieran didn't flinch. I tried to stop him. The rain outside had turned into a storm, thunder rattling the windows. He moved to the bar cart, pouring himself a drink with steady hands. Damien was 23, he said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Fresh out of business school, convinced he was invincible. He just talked father into giving him control of the new subsidiary. I studied the photo again, the burned-out shell of what looked like a warehouse. What happened? Kieran's knuckles whitened around his glass. He cut corners, ignored safety protocols, hired cheap labor to pad his margins. A bitter laugh escaped him. 12 people were inside when it went up in flames. My stomach twisted. Did anyone? 2 injured. No deaths. Miraculously. He finally looked at me, his green eyes dark. I got there before the fire department. Pulled 3 out myself. I exhaled slowly. And Damien? At a club across town. Celebrating his promotion. Kieran drained his glass. Father buried it, of course. Paid off the injured, bought the silence of the press. Damien never faced consequences. He'll know. I set the photo down. Why tell me this? Because Celine won't stop there. He met my gaze. She'll use it against us. Against you. I straighten my spine. Then we beat her to it. Celine's penthouse was all glass and sharp edges, just like her. She answered the door in a silk robe, her smirk fading when she saw me. Ilara. Her gaze darted behind me. No guard dog today? I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. We need to talk. She scoffed but closed the door. If you're here to beg. I know about the fire. That stopped her. She recovered quickly, crossing her arms. And I know you're planning to leak it. I turned to face her fully. Don't. She laughed, tossing her platinum hair over her shoulder. Or what? You'll run to Kieran? He's the one who... I'll go to Damien. Her breath hitched. I stepped closer. Tell me, Celine. How do you think he'll react when he finds out you've been digging into family secrets? Her carefully painted nails dug into her arms. He'd never believe you. I smiled. Wanna bet? Damien was drunk. I found him at the private members club he used to lord over, slumped in a leather booth, his tie undone. He blinked up at me like I was a ghost. Ilara. His voice was slurred. It's not possible. I slid into the seat across from him. We need to talk. He laughed, bitter and broken. Come to gloat. Come to warn you. I leaned forward. Celine's playing you. His bloodshot eyes narrowed. Fuck you. I pulled out my phone, playing the recording I'd made at Celine's, her voice crisp and clear. Kieran's the one who set that fire. Imagine what happens when the press finds out. Damien went very still. I pressed on. She's not doing this for you. She's doing it to save herself. His fist slammed onto the table, rattling the glasses. Get out. I stood. One last thing. I dropped a folded document in front of him. The original fire department report, listing Damien as the responsible party. Kieran wasn't the one who covered this up. Your father was. His face crumpled. I left him there, shattered and shaking. Kieran was waiting in the car outside, his gaze tracking me as I slid into the passenger seat. Well, I buckled my seatbelt. He'll call off Celine. Kieran arched a brow. Just like that. Not exactly. I met his eyes. He's broken, Kieran. Truly broken. For a moment, something like regret flickered across his face. Then it was gone. Good. The car pulled away from the curb, the city lights blurring past. I reached over, my fingers brushing his. You should have told me sooner. His hand turned, gripping mine. Would it have changed anything? I thought about it. No. He squeezed once, then let go. Then let's finish this. The morning of my wedding dawned with perfect clarity, the kind of sharp golden sunlight that made everything feel like a dream. Or a reckoning. I stood in the bridal suite of the Voss family estate, my reflection in the floor-length mirror, a stranger draped in ivory silk and vengeance. The dress was all delicate lace and razor-sharp lines, fitting for a woman about to walk down the aisle toward the brother of the man who'd destroyed her. Livia fastened the clasp of my necklace, her fingers trembling. You don't have to do this, she whispered. I met her eyes in the mirror. Yes, I do. A knock at the door interrupted us. Kieran's assistant, Naomi, stepped inside, her tablet clutched tightly. It's done, she said. Damien's shares have been fully transferred. He's effectively cut off. A slow smile spread across my lips. And Celine. Naomi's mouth twisted. Gone. Boarded a flight to Zurich this morning. I exhaled, the last knot of tension unraveling in my chest. Livia's hands dropped from my shoulders. You're really going through with this? I turned to face her fully. You can stand with me or walk away. But don't pretend this isn't what he deserved. She hesitated, then reached for my bouquet. Let's get you married then. The ceremony was held in the estate gardens, beneath an arch of white roses that dripped petals like tears. Every powerful name in Varenthus was in attendance, their whispers hidden behind champagne flutes and feigned smiles. I didn't see Damien until I was halfway down the aisle. He stood at the back, uninvited, his suit rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. Our gazes locked, and for a moment I saw the boy I'd fallen for, before he'd become the man who broke me. Then Kieran stepped into view and the world narrowed. My almost husband looked devastating in his tuxedo, his green eyes tracking my every step with predatory focus. When I reached him, he didn't smile. just took my hand and squeezed once as if to say, together. The officiant began speaking, but I barely heard the words. All I could think about was the way Damien was shaking where he stood, the way his fists clenched at his sides. Then, stop. Damien's voice cracked through the ceremony like gunfire. The crowd turned as one. Kieran's grip on my hand tightened. Security, he murmured. But Damien was already striding forward, his face a mask of desperation. Alara, please. The guests erupted in whispers. A camera flash went off. Kieran stepped slightly in front of me. You're making a scene. Damien ignored him, his eyes only on me. I was wrong. God, I was so wrong. Don't do this. I tilted my head. Why not? His breath hitched. Because you don't love him. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. And I loved you? Something in his face shattered. He dropped to his knees. The gasps were audible. Please, he begged, tears streaking down his face. I'll do anything. Anything. I looked down at him, this broken, weeping man who'd once held my heart in his careless hands, and felt nothing. Kieran, I said softly. My fiancé didn't hesitate. Remove him. Security descended, dragging a sobbing Damien away as the crowd watched, stunned. The officiant cleared his throat. Shall we continue? I turned back to Kieran, smoothing my hands over his lapels. I believe we were in the middle of something. His lips curved. Indeed we were. The reception was a blur of champagne and whispered gossip. I danced with Kieran under the twinkling lights, his hand warm at my waist, his breath hot against my ear. Happy, he murmured. I glanced across the room where Damien's empty chair sat like a tombstone. Getting there. He spun me out, then back in, my back flush against his chest. The board meets Monday. They'll finalize my permanent position as CEO. I leaned into him. And Damien? Kieran's voice was dark with promise. He'll never work in this city again. The music swelled, the night air sweet with jasmine and vindication. I closed my eyes and let myself revel in it. The morning after the wedding, I woke to sunlight streaming through the sheer curtains of Kieran's, our bedroom. The silk sheets were cool against my bare skin, the weight of the emerald-cut diamond on my left hand still foreign. Kieran was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with his back to me, his shoulders tense. The faint glow of his phone screen illuminated the sharp lines of his profile. Bad news? I asked, my voice rough with sleep. He didn't turn. Damien. I sat up, the sheet pooling around my waist. What now? Kieran handed me the phone. The headline glared up at me. Disgraced heir speaks out. My brother stole my fiancé and my company. I skimmed the article. Damien's tearful interview with a trashy tabloid, his claims that Kieran had manipulated me, that the fire had been set deliberately to ruin him. The comments section was already flooded with outrage. I tossed the phone aside. Pathetic. Kieran finally turned to face me. It's working. The board's emergency line has been ringing non-stop. I reached for him, my fingers tracing the tense line of his jaw. Then we handle it. His hand covered mine, warm and sure. We will. The Voss Group headquarters was in chaos when we arrived. Reporters clustered at the entrance, shouting questions as we pushed through. Inside, executives huddled in hushed groups, their whispers dying as we passed. Naomi met us at the elevator, her tablet clutched like a shield. The board is demanding an emergency meeting. Alistair's already in the conference room. Kieran didn't break stride. Damage control? Prepped and ready. He handed me a folder. Your statement. I flipped it open. A carefully worded denial, a reminder of Damien's documented failures, a veiled threat of legal action. Kieran glanced at me. Comfortable with this? I closed the folder. Let me talk to him first. Damien was waiting in his old office, though the nameplate had already been removed from the door. He looked worse than yesterday, his eyes bloodshot, his expensive suit wrinkled, the stubble on his jaw giving him a ragged edge. He stood when I entered, his hands shaking. Alara. Stop. I didn't sit. You're embarrassing yourself. His face twisted. He brainwashed you. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Is that what you need to believe? That I couldn't possibly have chosen this? He flinched. You loved me. Once. I stepped closer. But you chose Celine. Remember? His breath hitched. I was wrong. And now you're paying for it. I tilted my head. Tell me, Damien, how does it feel? To lose everything. His composure shattered. He dropped to his knees, his hands clutching at my skirt. Please. I'll beg if that's what you want. I looked down at him, this broken man who'd once held my heart, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Good, I said softly. Because I want to hear it. Kieran found me on the rooftop terrace an hour later, the city spread out beneath us. Well? He asked, coming to stand beside me. I handed him my phone, the recording of Damien's begging still playing. The board will have this within the hour. Kieran's lips curved. Brutal. I turned to face him fully. You're welcome. For a long moment he just looked at me, his green eyes unreadable. Then slowly he reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek. I think, he murmured, I might actually like you, Mrs. Voss. I caught his wrist, holding him there. Took you long enough. His mouth crashed down on mine, hot and demanding, and for the first time since this began, it didn't feel like revenge. Felt like something far more dangerous. 1 month later. The Voss Group Christmas Gala glittered like a razor blade, all sharp edges and dangerous beauty. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across the ballroom, guests swirling in designer gowns and bespoke suits, champagne flutes clinking with false cheer. I stood at Kieran's side, my hand resting lightly on his arm, my emerald wedding band catching the light. The past month had been a whirlwind of board meetings and power plays, of Damien's name being scrubbed from company records, of whispered rumors that grew louder with each passing day. And now the final act. Kieran leaned down, his breath warm against my ear. Ready? I smiled up at him. Let's end this. Damien arrived late, uninvited, his once impeccable suit rumpled, his eyes hollow. He looked like a ghost haunting his own life. The room hushed as he strode toward us, his gait unsteady. Brother, Kieran greeted, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. How kind of you to join us. Damien's gaze flickered to me, then away. I want my shares back. Kieran arched a brow. And why would I do that? Because if you don't, Damien's voice cracked. I'll go public with everything. The fire. The bribes. The truth about father. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I stepped forward, my stiletto sinking into the plush carpet. You'd destroy your own family? Damien laughed, the sound jagged. What family? Kieran's hand settled at the small of my back. You're drunk. I'm done. Damien pulled a flash drive from his pocket. It's all here. Every dirty secret. Either buy me out or I burn it all down. Silence. No need. Celine's voice cut through the tension like a scalpel. She stood at the edge of the crowd, her platinum hair slicked back, her scarlet dress a slash of violence against the white and gold decor. In her hand an identical flash drive. I beat you to it, she purred. Damien whirled on her. You bitch. Kieran snapped his fingers. Security descended, dragging Damien back as he thrashed, his shouts echoing through the ballroom. Celine watched, her smile sharp. Happy anniversary, darling. Later in Kieran's office. The chaos had been contained. Damien ejected. The guests placated with expensive liquor and carefully crafted lies. Celine sat across from us, her legs crossed, her manicured fingers drumming against Kieran's desk. Name your price, Kieran said. She laughed. I don't want money. Her gaze slid to me. I want her to admit it. I arched a brow. Admit what? That this was never about love. Celine leaned forward. That you're just as ruthless as the rest of us. The air between us crackled. Then I smiled. Of course it wasn't about love. Kieran went very still beside me. I stood circling the desk until I loomed over Celine. But here's what you don't understand, I won. And you? I plucked the flash drive from her hand. You're just the help. Her face twisted. Kieran rose, his presence a silent threat. Leave. And if I ever see you again I won't be so polite. Celine stood, her heels clicking against the marble as she strode to the door. There she paused. This isn't over. The door slammed behind her. Alone at last. The penthouse was quiet, the city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. I stood at the window, Kieran's arms wrapping around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Regrets, he murmured. I turned in his arms, studying the man who had been my weapon, my ally, my husband. The man who knew every broken piece of me and hadn't flinched. Not a single one, I said. His lips curved. Good. Then he kissed me and the world outside ceased to exist. The book. Damien left the country the next day. Celine's tell-all interview aired to dismal ratings. The Voss group thrived under Kieran's leadership. Me. I woke each morning in a bed of silk and secrets, my husband's arms around me, our empire stretching as far as the eye could see. Some called it revenge. I called it justice. The end.